Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Likon Obanjo. The top stories at this hour. Nigerian Senate probes 30 trillion naira CBN loans under the Buhari administration. 15 Senegalese presidential candidates decry delay in setting new poll dates. Cuban official in Kenya over claims of kidnapped doctor's death. Details to come your way shortly. According to reports reaching us, we tell you that the police authorities have debunked reports making the rounds that the national chairman of the Labour Party, Julius Abure, has been arrested in Benin City, the Edo state capital. In a telephone conversation with our source, the police PRO in Edo State says the story is unfounded. Reports had emerged earlier that Abure was arrested on allegations of premeditated murder, amongst other charges. Abure and the Labour Party have been enmeshed in several intra-party controversies, the latest being claims of misappropriation of 3.5 billion naira by the suspended national treasurer of the party. Well, we are monitoring this story and we will bring you more details as it unfolds. In the meantime, let's quickly join our correspondent, Bernard Akede, who is in Edo State, to bring us more details about this. Bernard, good afternoon to you. Now, what do you have to say, or what do you know about the story alleging that the national chairman of the Labour Party has been arrested?
Thank you, Lekon. Well, just as you mentioned, it is a developing story. I'm currently in front of the state secretariat in Upper Sapomba Road here in Ibadan. You can see it just above me there, adorned in the green color. I'm in Benin City, I beg your pardon. Now, I've gone in there, I've gone into the building, the second floor, where it's supposed to be. The entire office is locked, it's under lock and key. So we went to Ikpobaoka local government to speak to the chairman in that particular local government, Labour Party chairman. He wasn't on ground, but we got him on phone by name Jeffrey Scott Emwakbo, and he confirmed the arrest. Unfortunately, he went offline before we could actually ask him why exactly this arrest was made and what police station that the party chairman, talking about Julius Abure, was taken to. We've not been able to confirm that yet, and just like you mentioned, it still is a developing story. We're following the story on ground, but I can confirm that we've gone into the secretariat of Labour Party here in Benin. It's under lock and key, and there's been nobody there to respond to us at the moment.
Okay, so we also understand that the police PRO in the state has also said that the issue about the arrest is unfounded, that story is untrue. So how well can you help us detail that?
Yes, the PRO did say that is untrue, which is what led us to seeking more information. And well, I want to believe that the chairman of Ikpobaoka local government here, that's Labour Party chairman, would not be lying, because immediately we asked him, he confirmed the arrest with immediately, basically, you know, and said that truly the national chairman has been arrested. However, he did not state why the chairman was arrested, but there's an Instagram post that's been making the rounds stating that he has been arrested, and it actually showed the video of the arrest. But the caption of the video is, what I say, is aligning the arrest to misappropriation of party funds to the tune of about 3 billion naira. It's not saying anything about murder allegations as was being carried around. So it still is a developing story. Everybody's being careful about what's being mentioned until we can get authentic information as to why he was arrested, where he's been taken to, and what exactly is going on. There also are those who are, believing that this possibly could be linked to the party primaries that's coming up just tomorrow. And if you remember, the ruling PDP is having their primaries tomorrow, And the opposition, All Progressives Congress, will also be having another primaries election tomorrow following the disruption they had the last time. So we used to say that this may not be linked. But again, we have to wait for further authentic information before we can give more on this particular matter.
Okay, Bernard, before I let you go, according to the official website of the Labour Party, we understand that it was published that the leadership of the Labour Party described the video being broadcast by a renegade former member of the party, and they actually, or that particular party, Labour Party, is actually tying it to the Lamidi Apapa faction. Do you think, of course, we are trying to get details of all these, but do you think that could be linked to the Apapa faction trying to discredit the position and the person of Julius Abure?
I mean, Leko, this is Nigeria, sadly, and this is Nigerian politics. We've seen things like this happen before. We've seen things worse than this happen before. We've seen things, similar to this happen before. So we can't rule out any possibilities, to be honest, until we get authentic information. Anything and everything can happen as this goes on. But we will just have to wait for the next few hours to see what unfolds concerning this story. Again, the party primaries are to happen in less than 24 hours. So it's expected that there will be some drama here and there. It's a possibility. I wouldn't rule that out. But we'll just have to wait and see as things unfold.
No problem, Bernard. We'll continue to keep tabs with you to see how much details we can get from this. As long as they are factual, definitely it's what we will entertain and bring to the audience. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and just to let you know, we will continue to fact-find this particular matter and bring to you what is true on News Central Television. In the meantime, we move on and tell you that the Nigerian Senate has launched a comprehensive investigation into the utilization of the 30 trillion naira CBN loans during the tenure of former President Muhammadu Buhari, raising questions about financial transparency and accountability. This decision comes amid growing concerns over the alleged mismanagement of funds obtained from the Central Bank of Nigeria under the leadership of former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, with accusations of reckless spending worsening the country's ongoing food and security crisis. The Senate on Tuesday announced the formation of an ad hoc committee tasked with unraveling the details surrounding the 30 trillion naira overdraft, including an examination of how these funds were spent during the previous administration. The committee's scope also includes an investigation into the allocation of 10 trillion naira towards the Anchor Borrowers Scheme, as well as scrutiny of a 2.4 billion naira forex transaction from a larger $7 billion fund designated for specific purpose. And at this point, to help us shed more light on this particular story, we have Debo Adeniro. Of course, he represents Kakol, and we'll be getting details from him. Thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for having me.
Of course, you're welcome. How significant is the timing of this particular investigation, considering the current economic challenges the Nigeria is faced with, particularly as we look at the issue around food security and overall financial stability or instability, if we could put it that way, in the country?
Well, thank you very much. There's no time, excuse me, there's no time that is right or wrong for a probe of this nature to be carried out. Albeit we expected that the Senate has oversight functions, or a committee that should have performed oversight function on the central bank, and as a matter of fact, the executive arm of the former administration. And if that had been done, and with the involvement of ACTU, that is Anti-Corruption and Transparency Unit of the ICPC, maybe all of these will have been nipped in the bud. But that we have food and other crises in Nigeria also buttress the need for us to probe the past, and find out what led us to these palace present, so that we will prevent the present administration from going through the same cycle. the Senate is to detect how the money had been appropriated and has it been retired? As details of how this money, the ways and means, and the ones spent on anchor borrowers, and as a matter of fact, all the monies released by the central bank should be re-examined and see if they are properly utilized on those items that they are supposed to be utilized on. If they did, they should present their balance sheet. If they didn't, then they should hand them over. Those who manage the funds, they should hand them over to the appropriate anti-corruption agents for further investigation, prosecution, and as a matter of fact, adequate punishment.
So before now, for years, or should I say decades, there have been talks about ensuring financial accountability and transparency in governance in Nigeria. Now that we're beginning to see these stories come to light, does this show in any way that this particular administration has the will and the mettle to begin to tackle and fight corruption headlong? Are you confident about this particular crusade against corruption in the country?
Sure, I'm confident because we have more involvement of the members of the public. And it's like the present administration is listening to the cries of members of the public. And that was what could have informed the attempt to probe the administration of the past government. I mean, the way the past administration has run our government. And once we are able to discover those who mismanage public funds, it will show a way and give that level of confidence, to the people. And they will be able to trust their own government. But then, if this situation continues and no clue is given to the public on how we got to this stage, then we will not be able to trust the present administration as being different from the past ones. Once they are transparent, once they show genuine, readiness to follow the probity to a logical conclusion, they will earn the confidence of the public. And the public will want to support whatever they are doing. But then we should be vigilant. I mean, the civil society organizations and you people in the media, so that it will not be a way of drawing wool across our eyes to pretend that they are doing certain things on our behalf without really carrying it out to the letter. We want a situation whereby a government will set up a probe, involve members of the public, involve civil society organizations, involve the media, and ensure that no stone is left unturned. Once that is done, it will have achieved the aim of good governance.
Mr.
Yes.
Debo, oftentimes we have heard of government interference or probably executive interferences when it comes to sensitive situations like this. Now, are there challenges or obstacles that the Senate might encounter when it comes to unraveling or trying to unravel the details surrounding the utilization of these substantial funds?
Well, the reason why we have the Senate is to checkmate the excesses of the government. And that is where the separation of powers comes in. They have their own power to oversight the functioning of the executive arm. And that is exactly what they are doing. Otherwise, the principle of separation of power will have gone into jeopardy. Then there should be checks and balances. Checking the executive is another function of the legislature. That function is about what they are doing. That if they probe the past administration, it is a signal to the fact that the subsequent administration will also probe their own administration when they leave the stage. But then what will benefit the public is the result of all the probes, all the call for accountability and what do you call it? Everything that has to do with transparency and probity of the past. So
okay,
basically, it is...
Mr. Adeniro, sorry to cut in. I may need to quickly come in here because so much talk has been centered around the personalities or the people that have been accused of misappropriating funds. But we just realized that it is under a particular person, and that is former President Muhammadu Buhari. And there have been talks around the need to also bring him in for questioning. You would remember that he has said that, hey, once I'm done with my administration, nobody should come and disturb me in Dara for any question as regards how I administered over my tenure. So don't you think at this point that these stories are beginning to come to public, discourse, that there's a need for us to force the possibility of bringing him in to ask him, you superintended over these funds. How did the people you gave the responsibilities to, how did they spend or manage these funds to the point that we now see glaringly that these monies have been misappropriated?
Well, it depends on how the probe process pans out. The former president is the chief accounting officer of the Federation. And under him, we have the Auditor General of the Federation and an Accountant General of the Federation. He probably doesn't have to sign the check, and he might not even be aware that so much was released under the pretense of ways and means, because what this way and means finance, we do not know, because it is about budget deficit. The main budget had not been fully expended. Why would we fund supplementary budget? Now, if the president is really aware, and the other time somebody was saying that the president's signature and that of the secretary to the federal government were forged, well, that in itself has to be ascertained by the legislature. Now, if the then president has any hand in the way 22.7 trillion naira and the additional 1.something trillion being interest were misappropriated, because if they had been properly appropriated, properly spent on what they were meant for, we are not likely to be suffering the kind of shortages in funds and food in the country like we are suffering now. So if indeed the president knew about it, the then president knew about it, then he is not, higher than the rest of us Nigerians. He could, and he has lost his immunity, from prosecution, from investigation and prosecution. He could be invited, and if found guilty, he could also be punished.
All right, Debo Adeniro, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. You are the Chief Center for Anti-Corruption and Open Leadership. It was nice talking to you. I'm
also the President of Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, CBHR. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, you're watching news now. We'll go on a short break. We'll have more stories to come your way. Just stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Now to security matters. A bill seeking to amend Nigeria's constitution to legitimize the establishment of state police in the country has passed a second reading in the House of Representatives. The bill, sponsored by the Deputy Speaker of the House and 14 other members of Parliament, is expected to empower state governments to establish their own dedicated police agencies in order to tackle the escalating insecurity crisis in the country. Idong Joseph reports.
For state police seems to have gained attention in recent times, not only among lawmakers, but it seems the executive is also buying into the idea.
To provide for the establishment of state police.
Leading the debate for the bill which seeks to alter the nation's constitution and make provisions for the establishment of state police in the country. Lawmakers say the bill will empower states to establish state police so as to be able to tackle the insecurity challenges in their states.
We have the likes of Amotekun, we have Neighborhood Watch, we have Ebubeagu in the southeast. What we're trying to do and what this bill seeks to do is to streamline those activities.
The bill comprises of 18 clauses that seeks to alter Section 34, 35, 39, 42, 84, 89, and 129 among other sections of the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria. The proposal for the establishment of state police was supported by many lawmakers, as they said this will help address the current insecurity challenges being witnessed. However, there are some who expressed concern, especially in the ability of state governments to fund the venture in the light of current economic challenges.
It gives impetus to the communities. You are so conscious that you have security. What we are talking about now is the legal support.
May be different from what is happening in Abia, may be different from what is happening in Kano, and the way to control it also will be different. So I believe we are in need of their need.
Many states are insolvent, unable to pay their salaries and other obligations. State police is not the right way to go. Can the members of other political parties have justice in a job? The answer is no. So while I'm supporting this bill, I want us to look inward.
It will be recalled that the bill calling for the amendment of the Constitution to legalize state police in the country has been rejected by previous administrations. While there have been fears that they will be used by political class to oppress political opponents, lawmakers are saying that with less than 400,000 police officers in the employment of the federal government, providing security for over 200 million citizens is a tall order. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Still in Abuja, the Amalgamated Union of App-Based Drivers in Nigeria has called for a more friendly regulatory framework that will take care of the welfare of their members. The union made this known in Abuja during our stakeholders meeting in the nation's capital. Marvelous Obomano reports.
It is a strategic stakeholders meeting for members of the Amalgamated Union of App-Based Drivers in Nigeria based in Abuja. They are calling for a regulatory framework that will take care of drivers, putting health insurance, pension, vehicle insurance amongst others, which will also improve their living conditions.
We cannot succeed in this industry without considering the welfare of the drivers. So that's why we're here today, to reach a collective agreement that would lay down national guidelines that will address health and safety and welfare issues in the industry that affect the drivers.
It looks at the area of proper channel of communication for workers to prevent the activation and dismissals. It looks at the area of, deliberation on state taxes, in terms of dialoguing with state regulators to prevent the harassment of our workers.
Their vehicles are their offices, and when they have issues with those vehicles, they don't get to, earn, as it were. So one of the things Coronation is doing is collaborating with them, making how to get comprehensive insurance easy for them.
We're looking at a legal framework, legislative framework, whatever it is, that would help to foster the welfare of drivers under this union, and then work together with the in-app companies to develop such a guideline.
They say the current public transportation system in the country is not enough to cater for citizens, thus making their services key to helping citizens. They are also calling on government to improve the sector by putting the right policies in place.
The current public transport system cannot cater effectively for our population. We have over 200 million people, and just a few number of transporters that are at the public sector, or even the private taxi operators that were not on ride-hailing or e-hailing apps. So definitely Nigeria is very ripe for this form of transportation, this e-hailing transport. The fuel subsidy removal has led to a 30% reduction in the number of vehicles that we even see on the road, because many drivers can't even afford to fuel their vehicles and still make a profit at the end of the day.
The stakeholders will be hoping that the government will pay close attention to events in the transportation sector. This, they believe, can make the sector thrive. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obonman.
We'll now go on a short break. When we return, we'll bring you the rest of the stories. Don't go away. Let's now tell you that tanker drivers in Nigeria have been directed to resume operations following a crucial meeting involving key stakeholders and government officials after a two-day withdrawal of service. The decision to resume operations comes after discussions between the federal government, the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners Representatives, and other industry stakeholders addressing concerns over the high cost of diesel needed to fuel their trucks for transporting petroleum products across the nation. Among those present at the meeting were the National President of NATO, Yusuf Lawal Othman, Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, that is oil, Heineken Lokobiri, and officials from the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, as well as representatives from major energy marketers and independent petroleum marketers associations. Now, earlier, News Central's correspondent, Omolola Ololade, who is actually out there on the streets, spoke to us more about this development.
It's so sad that we have to wake up to another, long queues in most filling stations, because just before we got to this last one here, we had visited about 2 or 3 filling stations, and we found out that there are long queues there. While some are selling, some have not even sold fuel, contributing to the queues. But this particular one, we noticed that although they have been selling, because the queue is quite long, but it's been moving just because they're selling. But customers are complaining of the price. They say they buy as high as 1,000 naira, though this particular fuel station is still selling at 800. In fact, a lot of Nigerians right now are angry. They are grounding. A lot of them are saying that, why are we buying fuel at this exorbitant prices? Some drivers said they've been here, as early as 6 a.m. this morning, and they, before they opened, because even initially they didn't open the fuel station. It was just, shortly afterwards they started buying fuel, and then even at that they still had to buy.
We now continue with the stories, even as we tell you that 15 candidates in Senegal's delayed presidential election have accused President Macky Sall of ill will, saying they will take action to ensure a new poll date is swiftly established. The announcement came as the civil society collective Protect Our Collection said it had organized a new rally for Saturday. The collective is calling for an election to be held before April 2, when Sall's term officially runs out. It says the vote, originally scheduled for February 25, must be held by March 3 at the latest. Sall's last-minute delay to the February vote plunged the traditionally stable West African nation into its worst political crisis in decades and sparked unrest, during which 3 people were killed. In the meantime, Senegalese presidential candidate Khalifa Sall has continued to campaign with supporters in a working-class district of Dakar, despite not knowing when the election will take place. Sall told supporters at a rally that he wants the process to continue since the candidates have been confirmed. 19 of the 20 candidates approved to stand in the delayed February presidential poll have called for the new vote to be held no later than April 2.
Le décret abrogeant le décret
La proposition de loi votée par les députés ont été retoquées par le Conseil constitutionnel et que je vous donne que le processus continue puisque les candidats ont été confirmés, confortés et il nous a été demandé de discuter des conditions de parachever le processus.
Kumpul moom parce que campagne bi nii dañuy campagne loolu la nii ngi campagne ndax nañ na nii dañ ni wat wate yi nii ne duñ ko wat aj waaye daal en tout cas daal li ma ci mën a xam moom suñ njiit daal
maanaam dañuy continuer suñu campagne malgré li fi am yëpp Khalifa continue suñu campagne ñun tam dañuy continuer.
We now head to South Africa, where the battle for the 2024 national and provincial elections have begun following the announcements by President Cyril Ramaphosa that elections will be conducted at the end of May. According to the presidency, May 29 is set as the date for the 2024 elections in compliance with the Republic of South Africa's Constitution and the Electoral Act of 1998. This conclusion was reached after conferring with the Independent Electoral Commission as required by law. Meanwhile, political parties say they are ready for the battle to remove ANC from power. To discuss this, we're joined by leader Bongani Baloyi, is the Shiluvi leader and founder. Thank you so much for joining us on the news. So how significant is the timing of the election announcements, considering the ongoing challenges facing the country, such as rising unemployment rates and economic stagnation, as we've seen? Hello, Bongani. Okay, I think we just lost communication with Bongani there. We'll try to see as much as possible if we can bring him on the news before the expiration of this particular bulletin. But in the meantime, we take you to East Africa to tell you that the president of Cuba's National Assembly, that is Esteban Lazo Hernandez, has traveled to Kenya to seek clarification over recent unconfirmed reports which suggested that 2 Cuban doctors who were kidnapped in Kenya in 2019 had been killed. The doctors Arcel Herrera Correa and Landy Rodriguez Hernandez were kidnapped by Al-Shabaab militants as they traveled to work. Last weekend, Al-Shabaab said that the doctors had been killed last Thursday during a U.S. drone strike targeted at a house in the southern Somali town of Jalib. A U.S. defense official said there was no credible evidence that the strike caused any civilian casualties, but added that the U.S. was investigating Al-Shabaab's claim of the doctor's death. Still in the eastern part of the continent, 4 police officers have been arrested in Kenya after detectives raided a house where 37 Ethiopians were being held about 16 kilometers from the capital, Nairobi. The officers are suspected of aiding a human smuggling and trafficking operation. The Ethiopians told Kenyan authorities that they were en route to South Africa in search of better lives. According to the UN Migration Agency, Kenya is a common transit route for Ethiopian migrants attempting to illegally enter South Africa. Authorities say the search is underway for the owner of the house and other members of the smuggling ring. In the meantime, the United Nations has imposed an arms embargo, travel ban and asset freeze against 6 rebel leaders in the Democratic Republic of Congo amid violence in the country's east. Those sanctioned include the military spokesman of the M23 rebel group, general in the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, and 2 senior leaders in the Ugandan armed group Allied Democratic Forces. The others are the leader of the National Coalition of the People for the Sovereignty of Congo, a Mai group, and a commander in the armed group, Terewa Neheo. The announcement followed a UN Security Council meeting on Tuesday aimed at discussing the dire security situation in DR Congo. In a related development, the United States envoy to the United Nations, Robert Wood, has warned Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo to walk back from the brink of war as tensions rise between the neighbors. His warning comes amidst the United Nations call for a $2.6 billion in aid to provide life-saving assistance and protection to 8.7 million people, according to its humanitarian response plan for the year. The head of MONUSCO in DRC, Bintu Keita, also warned about the possible spread of the conflict, as well as the dire humanitarian situation on ground. Kinshasa, the United Nations and Western countries have accused Rwanda of supporting a rebel group active in eastern DRC in a bid to control vast mineral resources in the region, an allegation Kigali has denied.
Must end its support to M23. It must also withdraw Rwandan forces from Congolese territory and immediately remove any and all of its surface-to-air missile systems, which credible reporting indicates have been responsible for intentionally firing on the aerial assets of MONUSCO.
Issue must be resolved politically amongst Congolese. We will not accept this problem to be externalized into Rwanda by force once again. It should be well noted that any solution that doesn't cater for the root.
From other continents, we tell you that British politicians will today debate a motion to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. The SNP brought the motion while the government and Labour have both put forward amendments. The Labour has called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, a change in approach from its previous handling of the issue. It had previously called for a ceasefire that lasts in the Middle East, but stopped short of using the word immediate. Meanwhile, the government says ministers want an immediate humanitarian pause in the fighting between supporting moves towards a permanent, sustainable ceasefire that involves Hamas freeing all hostages, the Palestinian militant group relinquishing control of Gaza, and international efforts to create a two-state solution. The amendment says it supports Israel's rights to defend in compliance with international humanitarian law. Now, joining us to give more insight to this is our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Now, Afia, despite the U.S. calling for a temporary ceasefire, they used their veto at the UN against the resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire. Now, why have they taken that action?
Yesterday, the US was the only person to use their veto to stop the call for the immediate ceasefire. Algeria had brought the motion, US vetoed, UK abstained, but everybody else thought that it was time for a ceasefire to happen as soon as possible. The US drafted an alternative resolution that calls for a temporary ceasefire as soon as is practicable and calls on Israel not to proceed with the planned offensive on Rafah. Now, this may seem like we're digging into semantics, but it's all about the detail of these resolutions. Now, yesterday, the UN was calling for an immediate ceasefire. That's what Algeria had asked for. The US is calling for a ceasefire as soon as is practicable. And so that difference there is why the US decided to use their veto in this situation. It's thought that if this resolution that they are tabling goes back to the table and it's worded as soon as is practicable, they may vote for that to go ahead. So it's all about the details. Now, today in the UK Parliament, we will have a vote over whether the UK Parliament should call for an immediate ceasefire. The opposition, the Labour Party, have tabled that motion along with the SNP, the Scottish National Party, and it is a free vote. So we have to see what happens in Parliament later on this afternoon.
Well, Prince William released a statement yesterday on the ongoing conflict. What has been the reaction to this?
Yes, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, yesterday released a strongly worded statement where he called for an end to the fighting as soon as possible. He also went on to say that he was deeply moved as a father to see what was happening in the Middle East. Now, it's thought that he released this statement. It was passed through the Foreign and Commonwealth Office first, and it was co-signed in a way by Rishi Sunak, whose spokeswoman said, yes, we are also calling for an end to the violence, so this is in line with what the government says. Prince William is on a series of visits this week. He visited the British Red Cross headquarters yesterday. There was a live link where he spoke to people on the ground in Gaza about the terribly difficult situation that they are facing. And later on this week, he will visit a synagogue and talk to people there about the rise in anti-Semitism. So it's thought that he's decided to make this strong stand and make this political statement in the hopes that it will be listened to. Now, Israel has already replied, thanked him for his statement and thanked him for his condemnation of the October 7th attacks, which were leveled by Hamas. Now, a lot of people have been saying that it's not the Prince of Wales's place to comment like this on political situations, on an ongoing conflict. Members of the royal family, remember, are supposed to stay apolitical, but other people saying that he's using his platform in a good way to stand up for what is right, and so he should continue. But a very different move from his father when he was Prince Charles. Of course, he is King Charles now, but a very different move from what his father, when he was Prince Charles, would have done.
Also, we saw that UNICEF released a report warning of unbearable levels of child death in the region. Is there more that you can tell us about this?
Yes, absolutely. So the UN agency UNICEF has warned that the Gaza Strip is poised to witness an increase in what an official has called in a statement the already unbearable level of child deaths. The agency is saying that more than 90% of children under the age of 5 eat 2 or fewer foods a day, and that is known as severe food poverty. 70% of those children have experienced diarrhea in the last 2 weeks. We've talked a lot about that impending assault on Rafah. The malnutrition rate there is 5%. Compare that to 15% in northern Gaza. Now, before the war, that rate was only 1%.
Afia, again, thank you so much for giving us the updates as regards this. We'll keep tabs with you.
Thank you.
All right, two other stories as we bring you sports. Truth Njoya Jara has reportedly communicated her inability to recover ahead of Cameroon's crucial Olympic qualifiers match against Nigeria on Friday, 23rd. Coach Jean-Baptiste Bisek has replaced the 31-year-old with Kameni Flora Alice of Eboloa FC. For country, Ajara has netted 15 times in over 43 appearances, including Puskas-nominated goals against New Zealand in the 2019 Women's World Cup. Coach Bisek and his indomitable Lionesses team continue preparations ahead of the crunch tie, especially as the Olympic Games is now seen as a perfect substitution for the 2024 WAFCON, which Cameroon missed out on. Elsewhere, the Football Association of Zambia is saddened by the death of Copper Queens and Ndeni Roses striker Noreen Betani. Betani died on Wednesday morning at the University Teaching Hospital after being diagnosed with suspected malaria. FAZ General Secretary Reuben Kamanga says the player reported to camp whilst unwell and was taken to the hospital for thorough examination on recommendation by team medics. Noreen, who plays for Ndeni Roses, was among the 30 players summoned for the Paris 2024 qualifier against Ghana, but was diagnosed with severe malaria, which left her hospitalized at Chawama Level 1 Hospital in Lusaka. Now, Bayern Munich and head coach Thomas Tuchel will part ways at the end of the season. The decision comes after the 50-year-old side fell to a 3-2 loss at Bochum in the Bundesliga on Sunday. Bayern, who have won 11 league titles in a row, are 8 points behind Bayer Leverkusen and lost 3-0 to Xabi Alonso's league leaders earlier this month. The club says an amicable conversation took place to end the collaboration with Tuchel's contract set to expire in June. Defeat to Bochum was a 4th of the season in the league and 7th overall. Tuchel has won 22 of Bayern's 32 matches played across all competitions this campaign. Bayern are next in action against RB Leipzig on Saturday. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, we take a look at some of our top stories. Nigerian Senate probes 30 trillion naira CBN loans under the Buhari administration. 15 Senegalese presidential candidates decry delay in setting new poll dates. Cuban official in Kenya over claims of kidnapped doctor's death. You can send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number and email on your screen. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Onobanjo.